Well, welcome you with the latest on headlines today. I'm Preeti Chaudhary, and the latest that we're reporting comes in from the Karnataka High Court. Well, the celebrations that seemed were highly premature when it came to bail of Jayalalitha, the former Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu. Just as the prosecution told the court that they would not object to the bail plea, celebrations broke out in Chennai and Bangalore only for a harsh reality check a few moments later. The High Court contended that there was no ground for bail, that letting the convict out could lead to economic offences and that granting bail would be in violation of the CRPC. Headlines Today correspondents have been reporting the very latest. These visuals, of course, were recorded just about an hour ago, where scenes of jubilation broke out, something that was preceded by the public prosecution conceding that it will not contest the bail plea of the former Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu. However, just an hour later, on your right-hand side, scenes of mourning and protest, because news broke that the Karnataka High Court would have none of it and said that there was no ground to allow bail to Jayalalitha and her associates. I'd like to cut across to T.S. Sudhir, our editor South, giving us a larger perspective on how things are playing out as we speak. But first would be cutting across to Rohini Swami and my colleague Pratibha Raman, who've been reporting outside the Karnataka High Court. They were the first ones to break the news that bail, in fact, was denied to Jayalalitha. Rohini, can you take us through the sequence of events? There was a fair bit of confusion earlier on, and then finally bail denied.
Well, absolutely. See, initially the arguments set when we seen how Ramjit Jethmalani presented the arguments, there were a lot of cases that he was quoting and also reasoning as to why she should be granted bail. One of the classic examples that he gave was of Lalu Prasad Yadav, which he tried to impress upon the judge, saying that if Lalu Prasad Yadav could be granted bail, which was initially first denied in High Court but granted in Supreme Court after it took leniency on the case, then she could be also the reason this is not a heinous crime. But more importantly, it's also how the judge observed it. Even the special public prosecutor Bhavani Singh took a stand saying that he does not object if conditional bail is given to all the four accused. After which, it was based on the judge and his understanding that the whole thing turned around. Let me also bring in Pratibha Raman. You were there in court. What was that at that point of time where the judge observed that in spite of the arguments that were put forth by the special public prosecutor Bhavani Singh and Ram Jethmalani, that he said that bail has to be rejected? What are the reasons behind that kind of a decision?
Well, in fact, initially when Mr. Bhavani Singh did mention the fact that he had absolutely no counter objections that need to be presented, especially in terms of granting conditional bail, immediately there was an air of joyous exchanges between the AIADMK lawyers, which perhaps led to the fact that all of them claiming that the bail could perhaps be granted. But then the judge did observe the fact that even though in this particular case, when the sentence is limited to less than a period of 7 years, then it amounts to the bail being granted as a matter of course. But in this particular case, there is corruption that is involved, which could lead to economic offences, and that it is also a human rights violation, which is of a greater nature, and perhaps that is why in this particular case the bail being granted immediately would not be justified. And taking that stand, immediately he did mention that there were not enough grounds to grant bail, and hence the suspension of sentence will also remain dismissed.
Another point, Preeti, that was also being observed is the fact that this case has been delayed for nearly 18 years. And the fact that the judge observed to the point that if granted bail, this could this whole case could go on longer, and that could set a precedence to many such cases or many such people who would want to seek bail, especially if they have been denied bail in this lower court. Another important point also is, as we speak, the information that we're just getting in is the Tamil Nadu Chief Minister, Mr. O. Pannirselvam, has asked the people to maintain peace and quiet and law and order in the state of Tamil Nadu. They understand that bail has not been granted to the former Chief Minister, but he has made a fervent plea to everybody to maintain law and order in the state.
You know, Rohini, there's a theory which has come to light here, and many people are peddling it by stating that if the likes of Lalu could get bail, why couldn't Jayalalitha? And it is something that the learned judge did bring up when he gave his order.
Well, there were a lot of cases that were cited by Ram Jethmalani during his arguments, but one classic case that he explained was that of Lalu Prasad Yadav. I'll ask Pratibha on this. Pratibha, the fact that he cited, Ram Jethmalani started in his argument about Lalu Prasad Yadav getting bail, and that why shouldn't Jayalalitha get a bail of this sort? It is a 66 crore scam. That was the fodder scam. But what was that which the judge observed that he didn't find parity between both the cases?
True. In fact, when Mr. Jethmalani did start off the entire argument stating that he did represent Mr. Lalu Prasad in the High Court and it was denied, and then they went to the Supreme Court. By then, he had actually served a period of 10 years of imprisonment, which is perhaps why the judge did mention that there was not enough parity here, because in that particular case, he has already served 10 months and then being granted bail. But in this particular case, in just a matter of a few days, and then being granted bail would not really be justified for the amount of corruption and the money that is involved in this particular case.
So very clearly, this is the reasoning behind the judge observing that bail cannot be granted. And the most important point, which Pratibha also has been emphasizing, which he emphasized in his judgment, is that corruption is a very important case. It is taken very seriously by the legal system, and that is why it is a violation of human rights which could lead to economic offences. They did not want another precedent of this kind seeing that, and that is why the whole case is being heard. Both sides were heard, and finally bail was denied.
If we assume that the former Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu will approach the Supreme Court as soon as possible, even then, how long are we looking at a jail term right now for Jayalalitha? How many more days will she be spending in jail?
Well, definitely we're looking at the fact that possibly she would be spending her Diwali in jail. Vijayadashami, Dasera was already spent in jail. But the point is that yes, the legal system has already been put in place where she would have pressed upon her lawyers to go and petition in the Supreme Court right away. As Pratibha did speak to Ram Jethmalani, did he talk about petitioning in the Supreme Court?
Well, in fact, when he did walk out, there was an air of disappointment, so perhaps a lot of strategy that needs to be worked out. But as he did walk out, I did ask him off camera whether what would be his next step, but then he simply said that the client would take the next decision and it's not left in his hands. But then there was a clear sense of disappointment, and all of them huddling up together, the Tamil Nadu advocates as well as the advocates from here, all of them ganging up together in hushed rumors, talking to each other. Perhaps there could be another game plan which would be perhaps knocking at the Supreme Court doors.
Well, plan A, plan B is something they would always want to put in place, but most important, this is her only chance. She needs to petition the Supreme Court. How the court will hear her case, that will be the most important point, and how they will argue the case for her bail.
Well, ladies, do stay on with us. Pratibha and Rohini were the first to break the news that bail has in fact been denied to Jayalalitha. I'd also like to cut across to our editor, South TS, so he's giving us a larger perspective. TS, if you can read in to the political implications of this, especially for the state of Tamil Nadu and the AIADMK, there's a complete vacuum when it comes to leadership.
Yes, but just before I just say that, a quick word on what Jayalalitha's reaction was inside the Parapanagrahara prison in Bangalore. We are told by the DIG prisons that she did not react in any manner. She does not have a TV set, but she is now aware of the developments which have taken place in the Karnataka High Court. The more disturbing part for the AIADMK and Jayalalitha would be the kind of comments that the judge has made while actually rejecting the bail application, in which he said that corruption is a crime that cannot be tolerated. How the Supreme Court actually looks at this is going to be extremely significant in light of the comments that this judge in the Karnataka High Court has said. But yes, talking about the political vacuum, it is going to be extremely difficult for the AIADMK, given the fact that it is a huge loss of faith that they have not been able to secure bail for their party chief Jayalalitha from the Karnataka High Court, and now they will have to approach the Supreme Court, which will really be their last port of call. Politically speaking, it would seem to be on the back foot, because already there are protests breaking out in different parts of Tamil Nadu, even though Chief Minister Paneer Selvam has asked people to maintain calm, especially the AIADMK cadre. He's seen as an ineffective Chief Minister, someone who is really not in control, someone who the AIADMK cadre themselves look only as a stopgap arrangement. So whether Tamil Nadu remains calm and quiet is going to be the AIADMK government's biggest challenge, because a breakdown of law and order will not be taken kindly by the central government and by the people at large.
I'd like to cut across to breaking news that we are getting in. Jayalalitha has, the latest that we're getting in is on her reaction in prison. The DIG prison has stated that Jayalalitha does not have a TV set in her cell. The DIG prison has also confirmed to Headlines Today that she knows of the development on bail plea and is fine and stable, and has accepted the fact that her bail plea has in fact been rejected. That's the reaction of Jayalalitha coming in and breaking that reaction on Headlines Today. Our editor, our South editor, T.S. Sudhir on the phone line with us. T.S., can you talk us through the latest development there, Jayalalitha's reaction coming in from prison?
Well, yes, that was extremely significant because all along both Jayalalitha and the AIADMK cadre believed that today would be her last day in prison, that she would get bail. In fact, a chopper had been kept ready even at the HL airport in Bangalore. So everyone believed that she would get bail, especially after the manner in which Bhavani Singh, the special public prosecutor, said that he has no objection to conditional bail being granted to Jayalalitha and the other three accused. We are told by prison officials that she was calm, she knows about the developments, but she is completely stable, and there has been absolutely no kind of adverse reaction from the former Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu inside the Bangalore Central Prison.
All right, so no reaction yet, but the current incumbent Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, who's largely seen as an ineffective stopgap arrangement, O. Paneerselvam, has gone ahead and urged the impassioned cadre of AIADMK to keep calm and not to indulge in anything untoward. But cases already coming to the fore, and that's the news that we are breaking. In a statement, the Chief Minister Paneerselvam has said law and order is maintained. Some political rivals have been spreading news about lack of law and order, but everything is under control. Well, on ground, that is not the case. Cases of arson, violence and skirmishes across the state of Tamil Nadu are being reported as we speak. Would like to cut across back to T.S. Sudhir, Editor South, who's with us, talking us through these developments there. You know, T.S., quite expected of, things to maybe get out of hand in the state of Tamil Nadu. We'd seen those scenes of jubilation, and suddenly now there is this massive sense of mourning for the state of Tamil Nadu.
Absolutely. Even on the 27th of September, initially there were firecrackers and sweets also being distributed outside Poise Garden residence of Jayalalitha, and thereafter, in fact, the media had to bear the brunt of the anger of the AIADMK cadre. Now, it's important for the Tamil Nadu government, headed by O. Paneerselvam, to ensure that things do not get out of hand. The kind of reaction that we saw today when posters were put up saying that threatening Kannadigas living in Tamil Nadu that they could be abducted if Jayalalitha was not granted bail. Now, that's the kind of bad mouthing, and that's not the kind of bad blood that we need to be shown on the streets of Tamil Nadu. Of course, the AIADMK has distanced itself from those posters, but the very fact that it took 6 to 8 hours for them to actually do so shows the kind of mood within the AIADMK cadre. The cadre is extremely angry. They have been trying to project and portray this as a Karnataka versus Tamil Nadu affair, and the fact that the Karnataka High Court has given this judgment is not likely to go down very well with that very emotional AIADMK cadre.
And it also brings to the fore of a complete vacuum in leadership, because this is a Chief Minister, the incumbent Chief Minister as we speak, who is not taken seriously not just by the state but his own cadre.
Absolutely. Om Paneerselvam, make no mistake about it, is not a Chief Minister in control. He is not really seen as a natural leader and someone who is heading the cabinet effectively by people in his own ministry as well as by the AIADMK cadre. He is seen as a stopgap arrangement who is Chief Minister only because Jayalalitha chose him, and therefore the AIADMK cadre and the party has accepted him. So in that sense, it's going to be a huge challenge for him to be able to administer Tamil Nadu effectively. Last time when he was Chief Minister for 6 months in 2001-2002, he did not sign a single file. Whether Paneerselvam actually becomes someone different in his second avatar, in his second innings as Chief Minister, that's going to be the biggest challenge for him. Because if he chooses not to do so, Tamil Nadu could be in for a bit of trouble, because law and order does remain the biggest headache, the biggest challenge for the Tamil Nadu government as well as for the people at large in the state.
And stuff already being reported, issues already being reported, cases of arson, violence and skirmishes already being reported from the state of Tamil Nadu. We'll keep a keen eye on all developments. For now, Rohini Swami, Pratibha Raman, ladies, thank you for joining us. Also to T.S. Sudhir, Editor South.